One of the other things that we look at is, and I'm not sure if you were going this far in what you were asking or not, but we certainly look at, we have turned down some pieces of research that we felt really were not, well, for example, there's an organization that keeps wanting to work with us, and it's not that we're not open to working with them because we think that they have some skills. They're called the Innovation Center. They're a nonprofit that's also located at the university. And they're a business development group that supports technology businesses, new growth in the technology industry. And so they are, they've asked us a number of times to work with them on some agricultural initiatives that they've undertaken. And their agricultural initiatives were things where they were trying to promote, crop, they called it crop diversification, but we saw it as monoculture of certain types. And we didn't see where that was, the kind of ideas that they had were very likely to have a very negative ecological impact. And so we just couldn't see supporting that kind of activity. We said no, that we didn't want to be a partner in that. That we felt, and again, what they were proposing was kind of like, well, this is the answer to all the farmers' problems in the District of Algoma, and we'll just tell them to grow this crop or that crop, and that'll solve the problem. And that's not the way that we do research. That wasn't what the beef farmers were telling us, that they wanted to, abandon beef farming and take up another type of farming altogether. Although we wouldn't necessarily, we would certainly encourage them to do so if we felt that there was some other opportunities for them. We'd certainly put those in front of them and let them make that choice. But if you respect your partner, you're not going to be telling them what to do, or think that you know best for what they can do. So.
Can I make a kind of a comment about what's happened here in Saskatoon? And we were talking about it being 40 below with the wind chill. Well, QSTAR was an organization here at the university with which I participated about addressing the issue of those constituents who are homeless or who are at risk of being homeless. And it was a very satisfying experience for me to see what they work toward in that kind of cooperation between the constituents that don't have much to say, those who are homeless and who are on the streets in this kind of weather. And that's a huge constituency within our Saskatoon population, dismayingly, in 40 below weather. And so it's just good for me to know that the university was participating with various groups within the city to address that huge issue. And it's certainly not solved today, but they made inroads, and I was impressed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to summarize your comment because I want to respond to it. So the comment was that QSTAR had participated in studies around homelessness in Saskatoon and looked at ways of resolving that issue or contributing to that issue, and that was it was a compliment to QSTAR for undertaking that work. Yes, and I think that you're raising something that becomes a challenge, I think, for researchers as well, which I didn't talk about today. And that challenge is the challenge of becoming, even though it's a community university research partnership and you're supporting the development of the community's capacity and so on. There's always a challenge in that as well, that then you become seen as a leader in that, and that your voice is the one that gets heard, and you become the expert in homelessness, for example, rather than the person who is homeless and who may not want to share their voice with the broader public. And I think that that's a challenge for community-based researchers that I don't, I don't think that I have any quick answers for that. I think that that's something that I know I question myself all the time when I'm talking about research projects. I question myself about am I taking that voice away from the community that may want to? Whenever I can, like if my presentation today was on Pinokian Hills, for example, the farmers have accompanied our researchers many, many times and made those presentations in collaboration with the researcher, as has any of the other organizations that I've mentioned here. I mean, certainly Fort Albany First Nation representatives travel with Sheila Gruner, the researcher on that project, quite frequently to conferences and so on. And I think that that's another way of, again, developing the community's capacity to develop the confidence and the comfort level of speaking to, whether it's academics or whether it's to other communities or whether it's to policymakers, but that's a key part of the community-based research plan, is to provide that opportunity to develop the confidence and so on. But the other piece of it is the role that the university can play, and I think this is a really something that I'm coming to appreciate even more, is the role that the university plays in terms of lending its stature and credibility to the community group that is doing the research. And ASOPRCOR is a really good example of this. ASOPRCOR was an organization which, they've been operating for over 25 years. They've done just amazing things in the community. I mentioned some of them. I mean, they've got organic farms, they've got all kinds of things that they've done. But they never had anything in writing. Nothing was written down. So they didn't have a way of conveying what they all knew. And some of the people have never gone beyond, grade 2 or 3. Some of them have developed literacy skills but may have never gone to school at all. So to take this group and do a research project like this, where they now have, they've documented the history of the organization, what they've done as an organization, what they've achieved, what the, some of the political context in which they've had to try to undertake it, and the strategies that they've developed in order to do the things that they've done. And now they have this in a document which they've taken, again, because of the context in which they live, which is very violent, as I mentioned. They have to, before they even started the research, they went to the different municipalities, municipal governments, and told them what they were doing before they started the research, because they didn't want any surprises, and they didn't want any of the armed actors, the various armed actors in the region, to be surprised that this was taking place, or to think that they were doing research on what the guerrillas had done or what the paramilitaries had done or whatever. So, it needed, in order for their own safety, they had to make that very clear to everyone. So they went to the municipalities. So at the end, now that they've completed the research, they took this again to the municipalities. And at least one of the municipalities is now offering support to one of the community groups and saying, well, okay, we now appreciate how valuable this women's craft group is, and we are prepared to give you a permanent space for displaying and selling your crafts. So that's one example. But then the other example is the interest that the Columbian universities now have in the work that they've done, and they're prepared to offer a program there in response to the identified need in the community. Now that's a huge, in my view, the fact that the university was able to support them in doing that research has meant that they've made some very, very big gains. But it's that credibility that university-based research or university research gives to a community initiative. And the same is true of the Coalition of Algoma Passenger Trains. It's been a real factor for them as well.